Hello and welcome to SuperConnectivity Jessica Jones Edition. Bum, bum, bum. So, kids, at the time of this recording, we are 2 weeks out, approximately, from the...
1 week.
1 week?
1 week.
1 week.
Yeah, it's next Friday.
Oh, wow. Which means that by the time this goes up, hey, Jessica Jones, you may be watching it, kids. Oh, boy. Really excited.
We're only a few days away.
Yeah. Okay, so we have decided to take our first half of this podcast to talk about the joys, the wonders, the interesting things of the new Jessica Jones series on Netflix. Okay, so now I know you've been doing some research into Jessica Jones, Phil. So do you want to start us off here?
It really got me intrigued to read the series now, but she first showed up in Alias #1 in 2001, but they did kind of like a little, retcon thing where she's always been around. She actually went to high school with Peter Parker, and she was actually there when he got bit by the spider.
Yes, which I think is a very interesting thing because, of course, that's the one thing that we now know isn't going to be a part of the story. And we say this because we know that Peter Parker in our MCU is going to be a teenager, and this is a grown-up lady, Jessica Jones. So we know that we're already that ship is sailing. But you know what? I kind of always thought that was a little too twee by half, as they say. The idea that they, sort of like, as they say in the Venture Brothers, what did you guys go to Supervillain U? That all these people just all went to the same school, and as luck would have it, Dr. Doom and Reed Richards just happened to be roommates. What are the odds? So I'm kind of glad that that's one thing that will be dropped. We assume, although who knows? Maybe now she's got a crush on Tony Stark. I don't know.
Oh, jeez, but how she gets. Oh. But her and her she gets her powers when like her and her family are in the car and they get in a accident with I think they said it's a military transport or something, and they get hit with some kind of chemicals or toxic waste or something. Which the rest of her family.
Oh, sorry.
What?
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say the rest of her family's killed, and she's put into a coma. And when she wakes up, she discovers she has super strength, flight, which she was never good at, and some limited invulnerability.
Yes. And now this is an interesting aspect too with this too, because this also makes this the first MCU character with truly randomized powers. Now you can argue the Hulk, you can argue Daredevil, but in both the Hulk and the Daredevil, there was also a massive amount of training involved. There was a lot of active actions taken by each person to develop their superpowers. Alias is the first time where you have a true, what I like to say, an Argonaut or origin. I've always been fascinated by the story of Ediition and the Argonauts and how that sort of plays into the superhero mythos and the fact that, Jason is kind of the first mythological character that you find who isn't like the son of a god or something like that. He's just a guy who just randomly gets selected by the gods to be the hero of a set of stories. And specifically, Hera selects him, and it goes very poorly for Jason, which I think kind of sets up the modern Marvel storyline, where you gain superpowers, and it kind of sucks at the end of the day, because all this lousy stuff happens to you because you got pulled into these insane adventures, and that, of course, I think highly typifies what is the Jessica Jones story, that she gains these superpowers randomly. She didn't volunteer for the super soldier serum. She does not have, unless they're going to make some kind of inhuman origin, which I hope they don't, for her in this. She just gets exposed to Element X, and Element X gives her superpowers randomly. And then she has to deal with the fact that, okay, now I'm a super being too. And what do I do with this? And what's interesting in this is that this also, puts her before Peter Parker gets introduced, who is also a character who, of course, is a randomized superhero. And it's opening this up this idea of randomized superheroes, because like I said, prior to this, all the other heroes are all deliberate to some extent. Tony is building the armor and becoming Iron Man. Steve Rogers is volunteering for the super soldier serum. Black Widow and Hawkeye, well, they're aggressively trained super spies, and the Hulk was the scientist working to build something. It winds up turning him into a Hulk, but the end result was always going to be superpowers or some level of superhumanity. And so Jessica Jones being our first randomized superhero is a very exciting thing. What I also like about Jessica Jones in this is that because she is not really, and let's be honest, really not an established Marvel character, she really becomes the MCU's first real experimental superhero. I mean, yes, she does have a Marvel existence and a Marvel backstory, but it's not like she has, a decades-long history. It's not like she has, a history that goes back, 60 years and with lots of different, incarnations and explorations. She is, this person who's kind of tacked on, and especially since she became basically Mrs. Luke Cage, her story has been kind of not forefront in Marvel, which gives the writers of this story a lot of room to explore something really new and interesting with this character, who does not, even have that strong of a fan. I mean, she has her fan base. So I don't want to get well, actually, I'd love to get angry cards and letters from Jessica Jones fans, but she's not, she's not Spider-Man. Let's just put the nail on the head. She's not Spider-Man. She's not Luke Cage. She is an ancillary character who is getting this chance to be, and I really think the Marvel Cinematic Universe's like real breakout character, really something deeper and more profound than even Daredevil was. We'll see if that happens, but that's what I think this has the potential to be, and to really define the character in a way for an entire audience that is, exponentially larger than what her comic book audience is, and I'm excited by that as a concept, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Interestingly, in this, it does that Luke Cage is superpowered in this. I'm guessing we're gonna get, the story that he is, the guy who undergoes the experiments in prison in hopes of getting some time off his cell and off his term, and gets let go, or what exactly happens, I'm not sure, but it's going to be interesting. But again, what's interesting there is that yes, it is a superhero, but again, it's not this randomized superhero the way that Jessica Jones is, that Jessica Jones is, and of course, in being that randomized superhero, we also get, the tragedy of Jessica Jones, that she was someone who gained these powers, but wasn't really ready for all that being a superhero entailed, including, really messed up supervillains like Kilgrave.
Purple Man. That's where trauma comes from.
Well, yeah, and they're definitely playing up a lot of that in the more recent trailers. Exactly, what was very messed up about the Purple Man story, and suggesting how she was manipulated by him and controlled by him. There was a lot of sexuality in the Alias series, and the implication of the sexual exploitation of Kilgrave towards both Jessica Jones and others in his manipulations. And I do wonder if they're going to explore that. And on Netflix they have the ability to explore it. Really explore it, and I wonder how much they're going to do with that, because obviously you could also get a lot of pushback on something like that. People going in saying no, and their kids like, "Oh, let's watch this new superhero film, kids," and not for youngsters, folks.
Yeah, I wonder, because I forget who was saying it. There was somebody already on Twitter, somebody connected to the project saying, "Yeah, this isn't for your kids. It's pretty dark, so don't."
Yeah. Well, even without getting graphic, it is pretty dark. So yeah, I mean, I would.
Yeah.
And and for what it's worth, I don't think my kids are that interested in Jessica Jones' story. Although I'm interested to see Patsy Walker in it, because we're going to get a Patsy Walker. This is Patsy Walker's first arrival in the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I'm going to be interested to see how that story is going to play out, especially given that, as we're moving towards Doctor Strange, if we're going to be getting some more mysticism introduced in our Netflix series, we have had, Iron Fist teasers in Daredevil, and Kunlun teasers. And I also, kind of wonder if we may yet see magic in the MCU, perhaps even in Agents of Shield, with their current possible Zodiac ties and Kree connections, because yes, it's officially technology, but that technology gets pretty close to magic, and actually Kree technology specifically gets very close to magic, because it is all based on basically the quantum mechanical idea that observation creates reality, so that if you perceive in a certain existence, you can force that existence into existence.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting. It's an interesting, idea in quantum mechanics. It's not really, that. Yeah, and basically the idea is that since until you measure something, it does not actually have an existence. I'm sorry, yeah.
I was gonna say no. I'm sorry. Just that old saying that magic is just science we don't understand yet.
Yes, or that it's the there's the idea there, any significantly advanced science will appear as magic to those who do not understand it, and then the counter argument is that any significantly advanced magic will appear as science to those who do not understand magic. You're going to create this explanation to try and say why it's science, but really, no, that's all magic and whatnot, and that's sort of the thing is, like, when you get to this, as I've always said, when you get to this idea of the mind body connection and the super soldier serum, it highlights what is already there. If you are good becomes great, bad becomes horrific. That's magic. That's sympathetic magic. That's not science anymore. That is making more moral value judgments and creating a physical representation of that moral value judgment. So it is magic. It is not. It stopped being science a while ago, kids. And putting that nail on the head is what we're going to get when we get to. And I kind of feel that they have been easing us into that. And to that extent, I think the introduction of randomized superpowers will go a long way towards opening up that magical door, because it's one thing to say, we've studied the science and built this thing and it's gonna make a Captain America or a Hulk. It's something else to say, stuff happened and then superpowers, that basically, when you're opening up that, and Terrigen gets into this in its own way as well. But this idea that we're awakening something buried within you, and it actually reflects who you are as a being. It's a pretty interesting concept. Now, I wonder if we're actually going to get an origin for Purple Man in this, or if he's just going to be sort of like what they did with Krell, where he just shows up and he has powers, but we don't know why or how,
Yeah, and I wonder if he's going to encounter Daredevil, because didn't they say Daredevil's going to make an appearance in this, like, once?
Oh yeah, well, I'm sure you're going to see Daredevil. I'm sure you're going to see, I think they actually even said that the Punisher might be in this, because we did get news that the Punisher, or maybe they're going to put Punisher in Luke Cage, or maybe next season at Daredevil, but they might have hints at all these things coming up, but they've decided that they're not going to do a Iron Fist series. They're just going to do an Iron Fist movie for Netflix. And then they're going to have a Punisher series is the current rumor going around. Which I kind of, and I've said this before, I'm not quite sure the Punisher works in a series, but, they may well prove me wrong,
Well, they were talking there's another rumor they're talking about a Moon Knight series, too.
Yeah. Well, that would be interesting. I would be very fascinated to see how they're going to play Moon Knight, if they're going to play him more straight or play up the crazy angle, sort of make Moon Knight the MCU's Deadpool.
I thought you were gonna say Batman.
No. Really, Marvel Universe's Batman is probably the Punisher. He's much closer to it, the Batman ethos, I think. And although it's very interesting in the sense that what differentiates the Batman from the Punisher, aside from the billions of dollars, is the fact that the Punisher,
Kills.
he kills, but because his tragedy comes when he's an adult, so he handles it, I think, in a much more adult way. Whereas, Batman, his tragedy happens to him as a child, and so I think his motivations and his approaches are much. I don't want to say childlike. It's not childlike, but just the idea that he dresses up like a bat, to scare people. It bespeaks of childhood trauma. We'll say. It's a very interesting question with Frank Castle and it's always that question is who would these people be without their tragic backstories, what I think has always been kind of the suggestion, at least in modern versions of the Punisher, is that he would have been Captain America without his tragedy. That he was the super soldier. He was the guy, except he was the guy who trained and was just the super soldier through diet and exercise, as they say. He was as much as Captain America, but just because he trained just that hard and was just that great, just sort of the Batman idea of, he just made himself be the strongest guy there was. But whereas Batman is doing it because he's seeking a way he's channeling his grief from his loss of his parents. The Punisher became that super soldier just because he wanted to be this. He wanted to serve his country. He was the hero of in his original story of Vietnam. But then and that's of course the whole tragedy of the Punisher is that he survives Vietnam. Although I'm sure in this case it's going to be he gets back from Afghanistan. Highly decorated special forces, and then after surviving all of that, he comes home to his family, and then his family just gets mowed down by a random gunman. Which, of course, I've always felt that the randomness of the crime is key to the Punisher. And I do feel that it's key to Batman, although I know that they have been moving away from the idea that Batman's parents dying was just a random act of violence. At least it seems like they're moving away from that a lot, that they want it to be, this epic moment and be because of, the machinations of evil men. But I think it's a stronger story when it's random. Because I do think that randomness, as we're talking about with Jessica Jones, I think that randomness is very powerful in the superheroic mythos. It's the idea that, it's not that you went out and became a superhero because of your destiny. It's because you're just some guy who found himself in this spot that called on you to be a hero. I think that is, in many ways, the inherent Americanism of the superhero mythos, is that it's not that, I am, the noble, seventh son of the seventh son. It's that, I'm just the guy who happened to get hit by cosmic rays. And now that I've got all this, what am I going to do with it? What should I do as the guy who woke up yesterday and had his world turned upside down? And do I do something good or do I do evil? And when they do good, yes.
You were saying about the randomness of Jessica Jones. I don't know if they're going to do this in the Netflix show, but I think in the comic book, I think they were kind of hinting that, she was fated to become a superhero because they're like, she was there when Peter Parker got bit by the spider. She could have been her. Or I think they said there's a later scene where the truck carrying the toxic waste that blinds Matt Murdock almost hits her first, so it's like.
Yeah, well, except that, and that, of course, is that two twee by half thing that like I said. It's certainly something they can, it's certainly something that they might explore. I guess for me, the main problem with exploring it in that way is that it is a kind of a it's one, and I guess that's the thing is like you can say that these things were always swirling around her, but it's still a random occurrence. It's a random occurrence that Matt Murdock gets the power.
Yeah.
It's a random occurrence that, Peter gets the power. Now, granted, you can say in the web of destiny and the wills of, Lord Chaos and Master Order, these things come to pass. But at the same time, it is chaos and order that is making these things come to pass. It is the fact that, Peter is the right man in the right place at the right time, but it is still a random occurrence that the bug bites him. It is still a random occurrence that, Matt Murdock is crossing it's that random occurrence that he didn't step on a piece of gum halfway down the block and have to stop for a second to scrape the gum off his shoe so that he doesn't get to the corner in time to knock the old man out of the way. That in that universe, that one thing, that one little, for the want of a nail, as they say, the whole kingdom is lost. And I think that is very much the, that is the thing, is that none of these things have to happen this way, except that they do. And that is what makes it a superheroic story. And I think perhaps it is at least for the viewing audience, that maybe that's the secondary aspect of the whole thing, is that, that yes, if only the random occurrence would occur for us, sort of like winning the lottery, that we too would be superheroes, that we too could have been the heroes of we too could have, if only there were less safety regulations in our universe, maybe we could get doused in toxic waste and become superheroes. Yeah, I tell you, man, that's the one thing you can say about the Marvel Universe. They really have lax safety regulations. Roxxon is clearly paying off a lot of people to get this toxic waste moving around the country. But that's Jessica Jones. It's going to be a very interesting series. I think. I really think this is going to be one of Marvel's, biggest chances to shine. And I think it is. I know it's going to be. I really think it's going to be a critical darling. I think this is going to be, as I've said before, I think this is going to be Marvel's Breaking Bad. This is going to be Marvel's real prestige genre piece, where people are going to be talking about this in the way that, in the way that, things like this do. They build over time. People, they come in and they're, every time you go out there, you try to improve on something, or at least take a different take on something. I think that this is going to be, as much as people love Daredevil, I think Jessica Jones is going to really just blow them out of the water. And that is my hope for it. Yeah. And I have strong reason to believe that is what's going to happen, just by, what I've gotten. But of course, all I've gotten so far is trailers. So what do I know? I remember I was reading, there was something on Slate the other day where they were talking about, just remember that, people were just as excited about episode 1 of Star Wars, when the episode 1 came out, we were all, this is talking about The Force Awakens and how excited everyone is about The Force Awakens and how great The Force Awakens is going to be. And then out came episode 1. Although there is, just to show you how much Star Wars is now a part of the Marvel Disney empire, people have decided to no prize the heck out of episode 1. And have you read the article on how Jar Jar Binks is the secret Sith Lord of episode 1?
I didn't read it. I saw the headline, but I didn't read it.
It is actually a really fascinating story where they basically say, look, you can, sort of like what I was saying with it back in the all new Marvel Roundup, which if you didn't listen to it, kids, go back there and listen to it, because you need it to understand what I'm going to say next. When I was ragging on, what I felt was the obvious storyline in all new, all different Avengers, in episode 1, they say, yes, you can see what's happening with Jar Jar as silly random luck, but have we really ever seen silly random luck? And then the guy who breaks this down basically shows that all of these moves that Jar Jar is doing follows the basic wushu drunken fish kung fu style, where you basically make these movements that seem random and odd and make you look like you're stumbling around drunk, but actually what you're doing is you're, shifting your center of gravity and, actually doing these really complex moves that look random, but are actually very, very precise and intended to inflict massive damage, which we see Jar Jar Binks doing as he's stumbling around the battlefield. And then they make this point that, there are these other points where Jar Jar Binks is clearly demonstrating, these superb athletic skills that prior to this are only seen in Jedi. That only Jedis are doing the Force leaps and leaping up and over and back and around. In the middle of a fight, and and they do show how really when you see the eye lines of the characters when Jar Jar's off screen and he looks like he's just falling down, he actually has done this amazing backflip off screen. You just don't see it happening. It's a great bit of no prizery, is what it is, and and I don't know if George Lucas intended this, although I'll tell you what, I guarantee you that if you would go up to him right now and say, "Did you intend to?" He said, "Of course, it was so obvious. I didn't think I had to explain it." Because George Lucas likes to do that. Basically, someone says, "Oh, did you intend to make this an allegory for da-da-da?" Yes, I did. Thank you for asking. As people point out that, nothing of what eventually became Star Wars was actually present in Episode 7. In fact, Episode 7 was actually Episode 1. Not Episode 7. Episode 4 was actually Episode 1. It only became Episode 4 after he got the sequels. Then he decided to create this idea that, there must have been a backstory, and which is why there are all these things where people say, well, gee, shouldn't Obi-Wan have mentioned to Luke some of this stuff? And but that's the way it goes. But we've no prized the heck out of Star Wars, and now anyone who goes and watches anyone who's a Star Wars fan, I'm sure, is saying, yes, Jar Jar Binks is the Dark Sith Lord, and it makes so much sense now. And quite frankly, if you're going to have anyone be a Dark Sith Lord, make it be Jar Jar Binks, the most hated character in Star Wars anyway. So it's like, now we have a reason to hate him. He's the mastermind behind the Empire. It's a really good article, though. I highly recommend. If you haven't read that article yet, everyone go out and read that article. It's a lot of fun to read. It made my super connecting heart swell with pride to see others making connections like that. As exciting as Doom's mysterious parentage. Moving right along. What else? Is there anything else going on in the universe of Marvel right now? Or unless you want to complain about the cost and number of books of late.
What else?
Or do we do that enough in all Marvel Roundup?
I think we did enough of that in Roundup.
Okay.
I just can't wait for Jessica Jones. 1 week exactly from when we're recording this.
Hey, well, now here's the question: do you binge watch? Do you try to watch all 12 episodes, 16 episodes in one night? Or do you space it out? And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of the binge watch. First off, it's like I got that much time, I got that much time. As I said recently, I no longer have time for DC shows. I've managed to hang on to Gotham, but I deleted all my Flashes from the DVR because I realized I had 4 episodes of Flash. I hadn't watched a one. And I said, you know what? I'm never going to get to this. I was really excited for the Jay Garrick story. I just don't have time to watch it. So, and I got to make room for Gravity Falls on my DVR for the kids. The kids got 14 episodes of Pokemon and actually Yokai, which is their new one, Yokai Watch. They love Yokai Watch, which is a very interesting cartoon. Disney XD works in. We can talk about it on a Marvel podcast. Have you seen Yokai Watch?
No.
Your kid may not be old enough for that yet, but Yokai Watch, it's sort of like your Pokemon concept with these weird, monster beings that you collect. But the yokai, rather than being mythical animals, are spirits, occasionally dead people, who are responsible for all the random annoyances in your life, like suddenly having to pee. There's a character called Fidgephant, who is who basically what he does is he comes in, and when his spirit comes into your area, you suddenly have to pee, and that's his power. And I realized he is the Jigsaw of the yokai of the yokai, because he has this power that no one can resist, and everyone has to deal with, and it just completely disrupts what they're doing. Just like Jigglypuff makes everyone fall asleep, and so Jigglypuff always wins. Fidgetifant, as soon as it makes you have to pee, it's like, now you have to stop what you were doing because you have to pee. There's other characters that make you tell the truth. It's a very interesting thing, very weird, and yes, Yokai Watch. That's that. And Gravity Falls comes back this week, so and I was so mad, Big Bang Theory, I couldn't watch it last night and I thought it was printed everywhere. No, just in New York, because there was some sort of football-y game going on. So,
oh yeah, I was gonna say I saw it. I mean, I recorded it, but yeah, it was on.
No, we had football on Channel 2 in New York yesterday or Thursday night. Yeah, yesterday. That was Thursday night. So so now I'm gonna have to go watch it on demand, but that's okay because they have it on demand. Craziness. Okay. But like I said, I think Gravity Falls comes back either next Monday or the Monday after, and that'll be good. It's Weirdmageddon Part 2. Good show for Super Connections. And also, actually, do you know what I'm really excited that's coming back? This is completely non-Marvel in any way, but Venture Brothers is coming back. Do you ever watch the Venture Brothers? No? Okay. It's a great little series, basically with pastiches of a lot of Marvel characters. There's a Doctor Doom pastiche. There's a Fantastic Four pastiche, which is really awesome, called The Impossibles. And the Mr. Impossible. He's like all Reed Richardsy. Used to be voiced by Stephen Colbert. He's not anymore now that Stephen Colbert has a real job. But it's like his wife is the visible woman, and basically her skin just turns invisible, and so you can see all her organs. And her brother is the Human Torch, but he can't turn off the torch. And they've got a cousin who is very slow-witted, who is their thing. He's a living callus, as they say. And basically in this storyline, the Mr. Impossible is evil, and it's a very cool series. I highly recommend anyone who hasn't seen the Venture Brothers go out and watch the Venture Brothers. There's going to be a Captain America character this season, so I'm looking forward to that because Brock Sampson fights him. So yes, and they had the Brown Recluse is their Spider-Man character who shows up periodically. And he shoots webs out of his butt. Yes, well, it's a comedy and Adult Swim, but yes, I'm very happy to be seeing that come back, and we'll have to see where it goes. Anyway, okay, I think we've had more than enough connections. Now we're connecting things that aren't even Disney, Marvel, or Star Wars. So. Well, if someone would like to complain to you about the nonsense that comes out of my mouth, where can they commiserate with you?
Well, you can email me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com, and on Twitter, I'm @nightwingpdp.
And of course, you can always write to me at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. Remember, 2 N's in superconnectivity. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Charlie Esser, CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle, because that means quality. Connect with us again next week, folks, where we're going to talk about, will Jessica Jones, will we be able to have seen the first episode of Jessica Jones yet? I don't know. Does it drop on Friday? Or okay. So I'm
pretty sure it drops on Friday. Yeah, they said the 20th, yeah.
Okay. So maybe we can wake up real early in the morning on Friday. Maybe you and I, we can do a midnight watching of it. Yeah. So there we go. Midnight live tweet Jessica Jones. Go to at Charlie Esser, CharlieEsser. I'm going to live tweet as soon as it drops, or at least I'm going to try to, or I might fall asleep instead. Jessica Jones. So watch for it next week, kids, and then we'll talk about it right here on SuperConnectivity next week. Okay, connect with us again, folks. Have a great night.